Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, September 7th, Arbor Falls City Council meeting. First thing we'll do, 27th, what did I say, 7th? 27th. First thing we'll do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Christie, you can have a roll call, please.
Bierstead.
Here.
Bjork. Here. Carroll.
Here.
Downing.
Here.
Morstedt.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Odine.
Here.
Next, we have approval of minutes from the September 13th meeting.
I so move.
Second.
First and second on the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we'll have approval of the bills. Mr. Bjork.
I'd like to ask for approval with approval of $947,708.17.
Second. First and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next go on to public comments. Is there anybody in the audience has anything they'd like to say? Come on up. And when you come up, you please, there should be a sign-up sheet. Write your name and address down and state it for us too.
I'm on it.
Thank you.
My name is John Welter. I'm here as the, good evening. It's good to see you, by the way. I've been here before, but it's only been on Zoom. And so it's nice to be in person with you and to see some of the new members of the council. For the last 4 years, I've served as a volunteer, board member, and fundraising chair for the Kinni Corridor Collaborative. I've been here before, both to urge you to surrender the Powell Falls Dam license and open the door to more state funding, which you agreed to do, and to ask you to make a legislative priority for the city to support a change in state law in the last budget to increase the amount of municipal dam grant funding, which you also agreed to do. And those steps helped us to finally move forward with the fundraising toward the Powell Falls Dam removal. And I'm here tonight to share with you the Kinni CC's commitment to help support the feasibility study with the Corps of Engineers as the next twist in this process. You may recall that the Kinni CC is a public nonprofit corporation formed in 2019 at the request of the City Council. And its mission is to help raise funds and promote public awareness of the Kinni Corridor Plan and it moving forward with the future of the river, including the city's policy goal of removing the last 2 dams and restoring the river to free-flowing status. We've gone through hundreds of hours of volunteer contribution to further those goals and get the nonprofit properly organized, and we intend to continue to be engaged. We believe that the Corps, if it takes this project on, has the experience and the resources to get it done right. Plus, the $10 million that the Corps would bring can solve a lot of the funding challenges our community and our utility ratepayers face. That will cover a significant amount of the city's share of the full project. The city's share can also include the $1 million in DNR grant funding that's already been received for Powell Falls. And if and when the council chooses to surrender the Federal Energy Commission, Energy Regulatory Commission license on Junction Falls, the DNR's advised that the city will be eligible to apply for another $1 million municipal dam grant. The question now before the city is the feasibility study as a key to unlocking the professional services of the Corps and the funding they could bring to this project. The Kinni CC's fundraising team has been working hard since early this year when we got the go-ahead from the city to raise the remaining funds needed to remove the Powell Falls Dam. We put together teams of volunteer fundraisers, 5 teams, 3 to 7 members each, and they've been approaching foundations and businesses and government agencies, Trout Unlimited members and chapters and individuals. So far, those teams have raised in kind and in pledges and in receipts within a few $100s of 300,000. The city has also, of course, received that the grant from the DNR of $1 million, which partly came about because our Trout Unlimited members donated $5,000 to hire a lobbyist on that one issue. And our members haunted both the halls of the Capitol and the voicemail boxes of legislators from all over western Wisconsin. So we were busy on that throughout that process, even though the insiders in Madison said, boy, it's a real long shot. Well, we were too naive to know it couldn't be done. We were elated last May when the city utilities director told us that by next May of 2023, the Powell Falls Dam would be history. However, in July, the city's utilities director then advised us that they were on hold for those current efforts on Powell Falls so that the city could have discussions with the Corps of Engineers about moving forward. So since then, we've been contacting some donors, but holding our fire on a lot of the fundraising, waiting for the city to decide whether it wants to go forward with the feasibility study. Now, the city, if it chooses to go forward with the Corps, will need to chip in half of the costs under the usual Corps cost share agreements. And that study can often cost up to $750,000 if you start from scratch. But in this case, many of the topics that such a study requires have already been studied as part of the FERC relicensing and decommissioning process. Things like hydrology and sediment management and invasive species and the potential impact on the mussel beds in the St. Croix. So those things have already been studied. In fact, there have been contributions not only from the city for that, but from the Corps itself and from the Fish and Wildlife Service and other sources. So they already have a lot of the data that they would need to study for that feasibility study in hand. So we think that the feasibility study, it will likely be cheaper and quicker than the usual effort. The Corps will tell us more once they've evaluated the available information. To support the city's shift in focus and the potential accelerated timeline for the removal of both dams, Kinni CC has talked with our partners and many of our donors, although that process is still going on. The vast majority of those present donors have already said, look, what we donated was for the good of the river, the freeing the Kinni to a free-flowing state, and we're glad to have it applied to a feasibility study. And we're ready to commit to paying half of the city's share, up to $175,000, at the time that that share is determined by the Corps. But it's important to state, Kinni CC needs to have a place at the table as a voice of the community and a partner of the city as things go forward. So there you have it. Soon you will have an opportunity to decide whether it's a good approach for the city to commit to working with the Corps, which can bring in $10 million and a lot of ecological restoration expertise to this project, and whether you wish to have Kinni CC's support for half the cost of that feasibility study to offset the city, half the city's share. It's up to you. Thank you for your time. I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any, and I have a handout on the details, many of the Kinni CC's efforts to date on this project.
Can you just hand them to Christie there?
I will be glad to.
Thanks.
There we go.
Hey, is there anybody else in the audience? Okay.
Oh, there is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Patricia LaRue. I live at 49 Marcella Court. We learned at the September Utility Advisory Board meeting that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are in discussion with the city staff regarding a $10 million cost-sharing project in River Falls. We also learned that the utility has received its $1 million DNR grant to remove Powell Falls Dam. 2 years ago, the utilities convinced the DNR and the FERC to allow the utilities to drain Lake Louise. Once drained, we learned approximately 5,000 to 8,000 cubic yards of sediment moved from the lake bed into the lower Kinni. As the Kinni cut its new path through Lake Louise, we also found that the banks of the Kinni were approximately 12 feet deep into the sediment. We were told 2 years ago that now that the river was free-flowing, the city needed to remove and manage the sediment moving downstream. We were also told to remove approximately 22,000 cubic yards of sediment from the riverbanks to avoid the banks from collapsing and sending more additional sediment downriver. Those recommendations were primary to removing Powell Falls Dam. They are all dangers to the lower Kinni if any of that happens, and we've done nothing to mitigate that. The private partners of the public-private partnership have shown little financial will to help the River Falls utility ratepayers finance the dam removal project. And although they're talking right now that they have money here, as of the last Utility Advisory Board meeting, of the $60,000, $60,000 to $70,000 they committed to for our dam removal decommissioning plan, we'd received $20,000. So that's what we've received of all this money that they're talking about. So we turned to the available public funds. Now, if the funding of this project was financed with private money, I suppose the public would have little to no say of how it was spent. But the funds are publicly acquired, so I do have a say. I talked with Nate Wallerstedt at the Army Corps of Engineers, and I was told that the Army Corps must consider all alternatives. So I propose we use the $1 million that's sitting there, waiting to be used, to manage the accumulated sediment downstream, and we grade back the riverbanks to avoid further damage during the next flood. The money is there, and the work can be done while waiting for the Army Corps to do their feasibility study, which might take a year or so. I'm hopeful the Army Corps grant comes through. When that happens, I propose we use the funds to remove Powell Falls Dam, complete the lower river restoration, and reclaim the Lake Louise area into a park, or the Kinni Corridor Plan has it into a very nice regional ecological center. Above Junction Falls Dam, I propose we remove the approximately 100,000 cubic yards of sediment from Lake George. Carefully remove the old rock crib and timber dam. I would hate to see that go into a landfill. It's been there for 120 years, and I'm sure it has some historical value. And upgrade our stormwater system. Finally, I propose that we aerate bubblers and put a fountain in Lake George to better oxygenate the water, to mitigate algae growth, and to make it pretty. With the sediment in Lake George removed, the stormwater upgraded, and improved water oxygenation, Lake George would be a much improved habitat for fish, and we would all benefit from the biodiversity one finds when you have both a lake and a river in your community. The utilities will be able to continue generating renewable energy. The revenues from that generation will help pay down the debt we've already incurred toward the removal of Powell Falls Dam. We can't use any of the $1 million or the $10 million to pay past bills, and we have incurred a lot of costs to take out Powell Falls Dam, even though it's still sitting there. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been shocked by my utility electric bill. On the bill is a PCAC charge. The PCAC charge is what each of us pay when there is a shortage of energy and we need to pay a premium on the energy market. My PCAC charge has gone from 34 cents in March to $22.72 in September. It seems counterintuitive to discuss spending millions of dollars to take out a 1.5 million kilowatt hour source of electrical generation when we are paying a premium right now due to a shortage of generation. And one more thing, I did hear someone say that Junction Falls Dam was only meant to have a serviceable life of 50 years as of 1990. The engineer on that was from Ayers, and when it was finished, he told us, his name was Frederick Lux, he told us that the serviceable life of the dam after reconstruction was 50 to 75 years. So it's not done in 50 years. Thank you so much.
Yeah? Is there anybody else in the audience?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name's Gary Horvath. I live at 623 West Pine Street here in town, and I'm here on behalf of Trout Unlimited to speak in favor of entering into an agreement with the Corps of Engineers for environmental restoration of the Kinni. For those of you who don't know, Trout Unlimited is a national organization. They have over 400 chapters with over 300,000 members. I am currently the vice president of the local chapter, Kayaptawish, here serve Pierce, St. Croix, and Polk County. I'm also the regional VP for the Wisconsin State Council. And the State Council is made up of 21 chapters with over 6,000 members. And on this issue, we've been working with Minnesota State Council, mainly the Twin Cities chapter, but they have 5 chapters with over 3,000 members. So basically, I've been active on issues with the Kinni for a long time, going back in the early 90s when we were working on, as you know, that's when the city really started to take off growing. We were concerned about stormwater, trying to work with developers to mitigate those impacts. So we implemented our monitoring system about over 25 years ago. We worked closely with the engineer at the time and his city administrator on passage of the stormwater ordinance, which at the time was probably the strongest and best stormwater ordinance in the state of Wisconsin. And it still is an outstanding ordinance that does wonders to help protect the river as the city expands. I also served as the TU representative on the corridor committee that came at the compromise and recommendation to the council. So I spent a year on that. We, as Mr. Welter alluded to, I was part of the team and members who worked to raise money to hire the lobbyists, which in Madison got a lot of members because a lot of members who may not normally support Governor Evers on board, which complimented the mayors and some of you, the lobbying you guys did. So that passage allowed the city to get the $1 million, as been discussed. And also, if the city enters into the Corps, would free up another $1 million if and when the Junction Falls Dam FERC permit was abandoned. So that was a good outcome. So, you know, thousands of local anglers call the Kinni their home, and they love and treasure it. TU's national organization, regionally, it's recognized as an outstanding trout fishery. And Kayaptawish worked with the KCC, as Mr. Welter talked to. We've gotten funds from the Missouri Council, number of state chapters have donated, and the state council matched that. And so we've been working closely to raise funds for, at the time, river restoration, when the plan was just for Powell. And now with the city's initiative, which we support, for the Corps of Engineers involvement, we've gone back, we're in the process of going back to donors and redirecting that money to go put towards the feasibility study match. So we're in the process of doing that. We've gotten quite a few have said go ahead, and we're trying to gauge what restrictions there might be, and then if there's a gap, we're going to move on to raise any gap that could be. I'm hoping we don't have that, but so anyway, our chapter has worked with the Corps. We're very confident in them. We worked with them on the Spring Valley Dam and on the O'Galley. So we think, you know, they've got a lot of, one of our members used to work in that office, and we have a lot of faith in them to do what's needed for the city and for the environmental restoration. We'll continue to be a key partner with KCC as we move forward to fund the feasibility and other projects down the road. So we strongly urge you to enter into an agreement with the Corps for environmental restoration. And, you know, it is disappointing. We were all gung-ho to get Powell pulled, get the banks restored. But the ability to, by entering into the Corps, we basically will delay that. We recognize some of the issues raised about sediment are real and of a concern, but, you know, the rivers are resilient. You know, rivers are resilient, and if we can get both dams out, we already saw just last year from the drawdown that the river has dropped almost 3 degrees. It's the coldest ever recorded in 25 years. So we think with the upper dam out and stormwater addressed, it's for the best, and we're willing to, you know, we think the river will recover, and this is a project that is in the best interest of the river. So with that, I just want to thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else in the audience has anything like to stand up about? Okay, we'll move on. We have some representatives from Arbor Place who's going to give us a little presentation tonight.
Hello. Hello, my name is Alexandra and this is Alyssa. We are currently here on behalf of Arbor Place. We are 2 prevention coordinators and we were invited here to present on our prevention efforts. We do have a PowerPoint, if that could be posted. Okay, thank you.
So that's not prevention.
That's what I was like.
There we go.
There you go.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay. So yeah, we are currently on a grant with Pierce County DHS to implement substance usage prevention programming for school-aged youth children in Pierce County. So just some overview on Arbor Place. Our mission is to provide prevention, treatment, renewal, and recovery opportunities to individuals, families, and communities impacted by substance abuse, dependence, and mental health disorders. We do have a few folders that we'll pass out at the end if you guys are interested. So a few facts about Wisconsin. So approximately 1 in 5 Wisconsin 9th graders have had their first drink by the age of 13. And about 8% of 12 to 17-year-olds report drugs in the last month. Among them, about 80% report marijuana usage in the last month. And 1 in 5 Wisconsin high schoolers use e-cigarettes. Some examples are just Juuls, Mods, vapes, and more. There was an article written by 24/7 Wall Street that stated the 50th drunkest counties in America, and Wisconsin had 41 counties out of those 50. And as you can see, Pierce County is number 4, with about 30% of binge and heavy drinking. Okay, moving on to Delta 8. We just wanted to make you aware of Delta 8 since it is rising in popularity. It is estimated about 50 to 70%, or it is estimated to be about 50 to 70% as psychoactive as Delta 9. Basically, there are no federal or state laws setting a minimum age to purchase Delta 8, and there's no way of knowing what you're purchasing, and the products are usually geared towards the youth population, like Rice Krispies, gummies, and vape flavors. Here's a picture of a vending machine, a CBD vending machine in Wisconsin. How do you say it? Shawano.
Yeah, they're really popular up in that area right now, like the Green Bay, Wausau kind of area. We haven't really seen much down more in our area, but they are a thing, and there's no restriction on who can go and purchase from them.
Yeah, just something to be aware of, because we don't really know who's purchasing from them, but youths can purchase since they're just popping up, and so ordinances are needed to keep those away from Pierce County. So then moving on to why prevention is needed. As you know, alcohol, drugs, and tobacco usage in youths, they can have harmful outcomes, such as poor performance in school, depression, mental health issues, an increased risk of suicide, assault, and the children are more likely to engage in risky behaviors. Then just another statistic, youths who begin drinking before age 15 are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence than those who begin drinking at or after the legal age of 21. And then finally, our prevention efforts and what we are currently doing at Arbor Place. So yeah, a healthy mind starts with the healthy habits. So we provide education to parents, talking to their children regarding substance usage. We also talk to children who have substance usage issues. We go through programs with them. Some examples include Prime for Life, mental health first aid, In Depth, which is more tobacco and nicotine dependence, and then teen mental health first aid. So thank you for allowing us to come here and talk to you guys about our prevention efforts. We just wanted to make you aware, and as you guys are the city council and mayor of River Falls, and we are currently working in Pierce County, we have met with all of the schools in River Falls and have sent them our information, and they are all working with us currently. So we just wanted to bring you in on the loop as well. So we thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice job.
You need help on anything, or if you were looking for extending out and saying, here's where we need help, what could we do? Or as individuals or as a council, what can we do to help?
I think right now, it's really just getting started in Pierce County. I know Dunn County has been doing it for a really long time, a bunch of prevention programs. They've got a lot of stuff going on. But here, we're just starting it out. We're just still collecting the data, still just kind of reaching out and getting things going, and just kind of we want people to know that we're here, and that, if anyone has any interest in helping in any way, shape, or form, we can be reached. And because, at this point, I'm brand new to all of this. Okay. So I don't really know what to ask for necessarily, but I just think it's super important that, members of the community know that we're here, and this is something we're really passionate about with the kids in our area. And so,
would you guys state a phone number, like a phone number and a website for people?
Yeah.
Was it on another page?
I don't know if I seen it on.
Go to your page before.
Well, we have
individual numbers. Is there an overall?
Or is there a website they can go to?
There is. I believe it's Arbor. We have these silly QR codes for everything. I can't remember, but it's arborplaceinc.org/prevention. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question.
And we do have folders if you guys are interested, and that has all the QR codes in it for the website.
And it also has like a summary of our grant and kind of a key elements of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So more than we have time to tell everybody. So
yeah, this is a brief.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
So I work in healthcare, and I take care of people when they have difficulties in their life. So I really appreciate what you do. Mm-hmm. And with what you do now, and people have seen this in the news with problems with fentanyl being geared towards children. Now, are you seeing an uptick in the community with that going on?
Not specifically. It's definitely creeping back in, and we are seeing, opioids in general are starting to kind of come back a little stronger in the younger populations. I know that that's a thing. So nothing extremely like in our face, but the word's out. We hear about it and are aware.
All right. Well, thank you for everything you do, and we can direct people towards you if you need
Absolutely.
that type of help.
Yep, we're here.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, our utility director, Kevin Westhouse, is going to give us a little update on the Kinni corridor update.
Yeah. Let me get this set up, and then I'll get right after it with you. Everybody's okay sitting there that long? Try to pick this up for you a little bit here. Let me minimize this. Minimize this. Let's see if mine's still open here. Look at that. There it is. And then we'll go to the slideshow from the beginning. How about that? Just like we drew it up. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Kevin Westhouse, your Utility Director. And I was making some notes when Mr. Welter and Ms. LaRue and Mr. Horvath were talking. And the first note I put down, I'm like, that's a great teaser. Then I had to make another note. So it was somewhere between teaser and stole my thunder. But we'll go for it again here and kind of do a recap and a little more in-depth dive on Kinni Corridor implementation and a hydro recap and kind of where we're at related to some of the things they were talking about, the potential of this $10 million opportunity. So I'm going to give you the punchline ahead of the details so you can stew on that while I give you my presentation tonight. Maybe call it the conclusion, right? And then you can just pay attention to what you want to when we get through some of this more teaching moments. So we're going to talk about the update and reminder of where we've been with the Kinni Corridor Plan, 2016 through 2018. It's been a while ago. We'll give you the hydro relicensing update. That's going well. We're going to talk about Powell Falls Dam removal and the $1 million dam grant we received from the DNR earlier this year. And then we're going to talk about why that's paused down there at Powell Falls so that you can evaluate a $10 million opportunity, maybe in front of you from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that they presented us with here in the past 6 months. So I think before we jump in too much farther, I just want to let you know too, utilities. We're working on this big hydro relicensing, dam removal, potentially a big project with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I was making some notes today too as I was getting out of some meetings. So other things utilities are doing right now. North Interceptor just completed, lift station removed. See, this wasn't an applause line. Thank you, Diane. I know this is supposed to be no applause and but yeah, that was an applause line. Thanks for seeing that up there, Diane. We are now have our waste flowing all the way from Sterling Ponds to our wastewater treatment plant, gravity. So we removed that. That's a big project out of the way. Water tower, that's going to be starting next month, putting some pipe up the hill out there in Whitetail Corporate Park. Sludge dryer project that you approved here a few months ago. We had a kickoff meeting on that today. North looping of our water and sewer. You're going to be asked to approve that later in this meeting. Man Valley water sewer extension. And we're right in the middle of the engineering project of that. Man Valley lift station for sewer. And that is all in conjunction with dam relicensing, dam removal, and river restoration. So we've got a lot going on in utilities and just thought it'd be good to give you a quick reminder on what we've all been working on. So let's just jump right in and see how we got down this windy road to where we're at today. I guess this is where I have to advance the slides so I can do that. So Kinni Corridor plan refresher, hydro recap, and then we're going to get right into the Army Corps of Engineers. So this is the most busy slide, so just to let you know that the slides don't get any busier than this. I'm going to hit this real quick. So this is back. So first, the Kinni Corridor Plan refresher. Some of you may recall the planning process that began in 2016 and a plan that was adopted in 2019. How many of you remember going to the Catholic church in the basement and then over to the library and having all these charrettes? This was the Kinni Corridor Plan. Some of us forgot about that, but we're going to revisit that here briefly tonight. Here I pulled a vision from the plan, which was fairly lengthy, but it highlighted some of the key words and phrases. The river corridor will serve as an asset. It will provide economic vitality, ecological stability. It will connect people, strengthen our sense of place, and preserve and promote history and culture. This came out of the 2016 to 2019 Kinni Corridor planning. I've included a number of these examples in the next few slides that I'll just click through. This one identifies a river crossing. So, we came out of that with some pretty good ideas, and I almost kind of forgot about it. But this is a concept plan that has been adopted. This one it shows trail connectivity and access along the river. I can kind of envision that being the Kinni River. We want to make sure that we connect the river to the downtown and we focus on a vibrant downtown. We look for opportunities for nature and recreation access. And the last one here focuses on all those that we've mentioned so far, and including educational component as well that was brought up in the Kinni process. Here's a rough plan. There's quite a few maps in the plan. This one is just one of them to show you the concept for the middle Kinni, essentially from the Maple Street Bridge south to the Winter Street Bridge. It includes opportunities for green infrastructure, parks, trees, stormwater, etc., recreation spaces, an additional bridge, trails, and redevelopment areas. An amphitheater and natural playground are also included, and they're also on the wish list of the concept plan. Again, concept plan. This was hit on early by Mr. Welter, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about it again here just briefly. This will maybe close a loop with what Mr. Welter said, and then my take on it. So after the council passed Resolution 6234 in 2018, which recommends relicensing of the Junction Falls Dam for a final time and provides target timelines for both dams to be removed, we began the process of shifting from planning to implementation. A public-private partnership was recommended as part of the implementation, and Kinni Corridor Collaborative was started with the MOU between the city and the KCC, signed in August of 2019. The goals of the MOU in general terms include fundraising, acknowledging the KCC as the city's primary funding partner, providing a framework for project-specific works, LOAs to remove the dams, and to engage a network of partners. Recently, city leaders, including the mayor and the city administrator, met with the president of the KCC and discussed progress and potential future adjustment to the KCC's work. As of today, Scott and the mayor, Toland, are working with the future direction between the city and the KCC. I've included at the bottom of the slide a recent article from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel you may be interested in. In Bay City, Wisconsin, they were recently awarded a U.S. Army Corps of Engineering funding for restoration for the village to regain access to Lake Pepin. Referenced in the article is the Lake Pepin Legacy Alliance, also referenced here. These are two items you may wish to review as they are good examples in relation to our work. So just down the river, U.S. Army Corps is working with Bay City on this project. So a little bit more background. In 2018, some of you were here for this. In February of 2018, you passed a resolution. The resolution said you wanted a free-flowing Kinnick River, removal of both dams. Powell Fall dams by 2026, the upper dam Junction Falls by between 2035 and 2040. Also in that resolution, you declared that we should apply for relicensing of our facilities. So we went ahead and did all of that. That's a pretty bold move, right? It took us 2-3 years to get to that. And that February day, you said, we're going for it. We want a free-flowing Kinni. In the meantime, let's relicense, get some revenue off of the Junction Falls, and away we went. Well, we're coming right along with this, and you can see here by this timeline, I've advanced it. By next August, we will have our license, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission license for Junction Falls. You're going to say, what about Powell Falls? Well, I'm going to get to that right here. So everything is going well with relicensing. Just want to let you know, we've had really no hiccups. We've had a lot of different twists and turns, but no hiccups to say. We're on track. Things are going well. Who remembers June of 2020, that big flood? I remember poking my phone through this fence you can see there, and my gosh, what a flood. As you look back on that, you can't even hardly imagine what happened there in the Kinnick River in that late June day in 2020. So that happened. We're all watching that and going, uh-oh, what's happening with our dam? Well, we did have a little bit of damage on one of the edges of the wing walls, and we knew there might be some damage on these dams. We also saw a lot of debris stacking up in the trash rack. Let me see, I'll get my notes going here. So we decided that we needed to take a look at that dam. We saw some seepage on one of the wing walls. We saw some of the large tree branches up against the dam. We said there might be some damage there. So FERC said, you need to take a look at that dam. In order for us to take a good look at that dam, we needed to draw down Lake Louise. So in conjunction with the DNR, working on timing with trout spawning and a bunch of other things, we drew down Lake Louise in October of 2020. The lake was down, and then we said, hey, do we want to fill that back up and go through the sediment transport again, or do we want to do another plan? We came to this governing body and the UAB, I think it was in early 21, and we gave you 5 options, all the way from refill the lake back up, start producing electricity again, to option 5 was keep the drawdown and proceed with dam removal as fast as possible. That's typical from this type of governing board. You choose right in the middle, option 3. Option 3 was keep the drawdown, fix the gate so it opens more easily, pull the turbines, and do dam removal under the DNR. So we had to get that dam out of the jurisdiction of FERC and to the DNR. We did that. It took us committing to fixing the wing wall, cleaning the trash rack, and coming up with a 60% decommissioning plan. This picture here is part of that decommissioning plan. You can see we have a causeway. We have a disposal site in the old quarry area there for where the dam will go. So now we're set up to remove Powell Falls Dam. This is not our river. I have to be clear on that, because last time I showed this picture, I think I got a phone call like, what are we doing in the river? This is not us, just a representation of what dam removal will look like. So we're shifting from licensing to decommissioning. At least we're running parallel tracks. And we're going ahead, and now that dam is governed by the DNR and not FERC, and we only have one FERC dam left, the upper one, Junction Falls. We'll see how much money we spent on this. This is a quick snapshot of what we spent. Above the red line, you can see we've spent close to $1 million. If you take the $210,000 that the Army Corps of Engineers has contributed in some of the studies, we are just over $1 million spent to this day in the last 4 years on the FERC relicensing and then moving that lower dam to DNR jurisdiction. You can also see the removal. We have a budget estimate of a little over $1.4 million to remove Powell Falls. So a grand total of $2.35, and you say minus the $1 million grant for DNR. Well, there you go. We had to also get that dam out of the jurisdiction of FERC so we would qualify for this DNR grant, and we did it. We had a 3 weeks time frame. Our crews are fantastic, and we qualified, and we ended up getting the $1 million grant. Duke alluded to that earlier. It's a lot of help from a lot of different people. So here we are, and also as Duke alluded to, we were thinking that dam's going to be out by next year. In the meantime, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers calls. I'm going to go to that next slide, and they called me. I think it was late November of last year, and I saw my first email correspondent with them was about early December of last year. They said, hey, we were awarded $10 million to do a project like yours. We know your project in River Falls. We helped you some of the studies. Would you be interested, River Falls, in allowing us to do a federal interest determination, a FID? We met with, I think you folks approved this in January and said, yeah, go ahead, let's do a federal interest determination. It's pretty innocuous, no commitment by us. They just want to see if they have a project. They came back to us in April and said, yeah, we do have a project, we think. Would you like to continue down the road with us and do a study? I'm getting ahead of myself here, so let's go. Let's just jump right to this one since I'm giving a lot of the background. So here we sit with $1 million to remove Powell Falls. In the meantime, Army Corps says, hey, how about $10 million to potentially remove both dams, do some more substantial river restoration, which then Scott and I talk, we're thinking, well, this might blend in with a larger project of, back to the beginning of this presentation, the Kinni corridor plan, start implementing some of these things, maybe the alleyways, stormwater, things like that. And we go, this might be a nice kickoff. Let me summarize it this way. You said in February of 2018 that the upper dam should come out between 2035 and 2040. Well, maybe this $10 million will allow us to move this whole thing up a decade. Really, that's really what we're talking about as the more I thought about this. We could wait and the project would still go forward in 2035 or 2040, but this $10 million might be enough to get us going in 2025 instead of 2035. Really, that's kind of what we're discussing today and what's in front of you right now. So, yeah, recent meetings with the U.S. Army Corps. DNR did participate in that. They are well aware of it. They said the $1 million dam grant could apply to local match if that funding is still available at the time. So, we don't have anything in writing on that, but in our phone conversations, that $1 million grant is not going to evaporate, but we will stay on top of that. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a feasibility study by the Army Corps of Engineers that would last 18 to 24 months. As Duke said, it's about $750,000, but if the first $100,000 of that is paid for by the federal government to the Army Corps, so about $650,000 left, of which the city would be in for $325,000 over a 2-year period. I'm going to come back to you next month with a memo and resolution asking you if you would like to move ahead with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which would put the immediate Powell Falls Dam removal on hold and move ahead with a bigger project that might include stormwater, that might include other amenities along the river and river restoration, and move us towards a grander vision that I showed you earlier in the presentation. So that's what I have. I hopefully didn't bore you too bad, and hopefully the introduction at the beginning gave you something to think about as I went through some of the details. But we are presented with, I think, with a pretty good opportunity. And that's really what this is about. We're not talking about dams in, dams out anymore. You already decided that. We're talking really about maybe having a project that we can realize in our lifetimes potentially. So that's where we're at. Do you have any questions at this point in time? Alyssa?
I have two.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't on council when the decision was made, so I wasn't there for a lot of this. But how common is it to remove a working hydroelectric plant that is providing wattage to customers? I understand the Powell Falls was damaged and needs to come out. With the Junction Falls, how common is it that we actually take out a working hydroelectric plant?
I don't want to say how common it is, but I will say it's common for dams to be removed. Assuming that there are working facilities, I don't know that, and I can't speak confidently that somebody would take something offline to remove a dam, but dam removal is fairly common. Scott, do you have anything to add to that at all or not?
We're not aware. Throughout this process, River Falls has been unique.
In a lot of ways.
So the DNR, FERC specifically has said, nobody else is doing what you're doing. Why do you want us to do it this way? Why don't you do it this other way? So I don't think we have the data. There's lots of data about dam removals. I don't know that there's data about licensed dams that are operating.
Right.
But we don't believe it's a common practice. It's also one of the things I think that's attracted some attention or interest from funding partners, that it's unique. It's also unique just that we found a number of things. I'll just highlight a couple. One is that we own 90-ish% of all the adjacent property to the impoundments and the dams themselves. So we own the dams. It's a municipal electric utility, which is owned by the community. So there isn't an investor-owned utility kind of wanting to hang on, or there isn't the investor-owned utility hasn't sold the dam to some company that just specifically operates dam, where they have a fiscal interest in it. So that's been fairly unique throughout this process. So I don't think you're going to find an example that relates directly to River Falls.
Okay. I have two more questions, if that's okay.
I was going to say, I gave a safe answer. He gave a safer answer.
My second question is, because the Junction Falls facility is a renewable energy source, if we move forward with removing Junction Falls, how will we replace that with another renewable energy source? What is the plan with the utilities to continue a renewable source of energy?
We don't have a specific plan in place to replace that, but we will be looking for partners to help us with that.
Okay.
Always.
And then my third question is is there possibility in this $10 million grant process for the Junction Falls Dam to remain, removing Powell Falls and creating a corridor project that continues to keep Junction Falls working and helping lower the costs for our ratepayers?
We did ask the Army Corps that specific question, and there's less interest by the Army Corps with the removal of just one dam. They need to have enough ecological impact to justify the $10 million, and just their gut said they didn't think one would do that. So they didn't put that in writing, but that was communicated to Scott and I. So there's less interest from the Army Corps for just one.
Okay, now I have 4 questions.
You
Sorry.
keep going. We got all night.
And then over time, how long would it take the Junction Falls hydroelectric plant to, and you don't have to have this answer off the top of your head, obviously, to recover the $10 million of funding that the Corps would give if we, like, how, because I know we have it licensed until 2035, 40. How long would it take the dam to recoup if we decided not to go with that, and then to spend city dollars to help, redo the, sorry, I have a cold and I can't think of words.
Fine.
To, do all the restoration and things that we need to do. If we paid for that through taxpayer dollars, how long would it take to recoup that? Like, how much does it make a year?
I'm going to help you, but I'm not going to give you the answer, but I'm going to help you get the answer. So
Okay.
we know that Junction Falls produces roughly $80,000 a year in avoided costs.
Okay.
That's energy we do not have to pay for, but would be gross revenue. That doesn't include any expenses. So there are expenses too. So when I say 80,000 of avoided costs, that's true, but there's also expenses that vary year to year.
Sure.
I suppose a conservative person might cut that in half. I know we have budgeted every year almost $100,000 to maintain that dam.
Okay.
So what Tim Toom brought up in our utility advisory board meeting. So there is $80,000 a year roughly of avoided costs, but there's also expenses that can vary in there as well. So if that helps.
I think that's all my questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alyssa brought up some of the points I was going to ask Kevin, but on this Corps Army Engineering plan, do we give the direction of what that path is, of what they're doing? And I know you said there's maybe less interest if there's only one dam, but what happens if it is only one dam, but we look at something different with the upper dam, and we look at the dredging, and we look at, I just look at that Lake George in a sense, and it's an envy of a lot of different communities, and for us not to take advantage of it and not to take advantage of the hydroelectricity that it produces just seems like a shame. So I'm just wondering, do you think the Corps of Engineering is like, we have no interest if it's only one dam because it's peanuts, or?
Yes, I think they have no interest if it's just one dam.
Wow.
I don't think in their professional judgment you can get enough ecological impact to make it a project of federal interest. It doesn't mean one dam isn't good enough for local interest, but for the federal government to say we're going to come in and do a 206 project, which is to improve the ecological, water, to improve water and habitat. We asked that specific question. How many ways can we move these pieces around? Can we just do the upper, not the lower? Can we do the lower ourselves and not have you part of the lower, and have you just do the upper? Can we have you do the lower and the upper and all the stormwater? Can we have you do just the stormwater and the lower? And they were very patient with us, and then said the project scope as they would imagine it will qualify would be removing both dams and substantial restoration of the entire corridor. That includes the impoundments and just south of the lower. So it doesn't mean we don't think there's benefit in just the lower. I would suspect in all the conversations we've had with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they believe we're going to need both to qualify for the federal funding. And you didn't ask the question directly, but I just want to, again, there's lots of what ifs that could be done. I heard at the UAB, what if we improve the generator of the upper hydro? We don't know everything, but we've learned a lot in this process. And I would suggest to everyone that any kind of modification from the core vision that we have is going to be met with opposition, studies, money, time, and that even if we can do a simple spreadsheet and say, well, we could do a new generator and increase the efficiency by X dollars, we have no idea, based on the federal process, how much it would cost us to actually get approval for doing that. It's near insanity the way things are set up as far as what you have to study just to do things. And I think we've been successful so far because we have a joint vision that's been adopted by a community to remove both dams eventually. And so regulatory agencies, interest groups, and other parties have gone along with that because they see the vision that we're headed towards. So if we were to modify those pieces significantly, I think we just, as staff, we'd have a hard time giving you the what if answers because it doesn't look to me like there's a clear path to do those kind of things. And so we're left right now. We think the choice is proceed on the path that we have. We can remove the lower. We think we're pretty close to having the resources to do that with our partners and with the success of the DNR. Or we can continue the pause of the lower because we actually think we could do harm to our chances of getting the Army Corps if we went ahead with the lower, because you lose that federal interest starts to, we think it's discounted in some way, and we don't know until we do the feasibility study, because they are going to do I believe in the feasibility study they're going to include kind of these options like here's what they think the scope is, but if you added this or subtracted this, would it change? Of course, that will cost us more money in feasibility to examine those different paths. And I hate to laugh, but it's been a long process. So every time you unravel something, we're careful about what we're unraveling and making sure that we have enough potential benefit from the unravel, because every time we take a little piece of yarn off the ball, there's cost and time and other things, and the unknowns about that seem to be much greater than if we can keep some kind of narrow focus. So I don't discount the fact that the community could choose a different path. I don't want anybody in the community, and especially not the council who I advise, to underestimate the complexity and cost of changing from the adopted vision. And the fact that all of this funding, even the $1 million we got from the DNR, has substantial strings attached. So we cannot it's not simply deposited in the general fund balance of the city, and then we can use it however we'd like. The funders have provided us that funding with specific expectations about delivery, and they approve every step that's outside of that. So I don't believe we can take the money we received from the DNR for removal of the dam and use it for sediment removal that doesn't result in the dam being removed. So of course we can do sediment removal. That's part of the dam removal. But we've moved the DNR and FERC to places I don't think they ever thought they could get to. And so I think we also want to be thoughtful about continuing that heavy push of, well, I know you said you'd give us this money for this, but what if? Not because the what if scenario is not a good exercise, not because it's intellectually stimulating, but because at some point we're going to wear out our welcome with people that are pretty key to our ability to get this success. So on the question of the cost that we're going to lose or whatever, I think we have started to do that. We've done that analysis before. We're kind of rehashing all of our analysis. But if we get relicensed and the relicense period is 2023, and then we were going to keep it open until 40, which is what we've said in our resolution, although the council could potentially extend that. You got 17 years times some amount of net profit, which is hard to predict given a relatively unstable construction market and unknown, what's going to happen if we bend a shaft or lightning strikes or whatever. The physical dam, the physical upper dam, by all engineering accounts, is going to be there as long as we want it to be there. So it's not really that. It's operating all the other things and the wires and cables and breakers and things that go along with it. So there is some commitment. It's informal, although it's embedded somewhat in that resolution, to try to understand what the renewable energy replacement is. I think we had a slide earlier, but we didn't put it in the end. But there's still some desire to do that. In the meantime, our customers have purchased they've increased their choice for green energy significantly over time. I don't think we checked the math lately, but probably significantly beyond what we would lose in the hydro. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't think about the hydro that we're losing. But we've brought on a lot through our purchasing more. And then we still have this question. There was this, if those of you who were part of the Kinni process, there was this idea of what's green, what's not green, what's renewable, what's not renewable. And then there was the whole question of carbon free, because WPPI has purchased more nuclear. So we've pushed towards some carbon free replacements of the hydro energy too. So we're happy to answer questions about that. I don't want to under answer, but I probably over answered at this point.
So going on further on my question, if we go with the Corps of Engineer project, is it our project or their project? Who manages it at that point then?
It will be their project, but we will be partners with that project because we're going to have to tie in our projects with their projects. And we scratched the surface on that topic with them the last time Scott and I talked. So in figuring out how to do that, right, we're going to have some visions for things we want to do that tie in with what they're doing. And we said together that we would find a way to make that happen. But they will have their project.
And they're the lead.
They're the lead. And then we'll have our projects. Some of those projects will overlap and some will be separate. So we're going to find a way where they overlap to find a way to sensibly work together. That was what we stated.
And you get this, and so I don't want to lose the focus of the context of where we're at. We're providing you an update on the process. I want to be respectful. We don't get into debating too much of the whens and whys and what, but you certainly have. I don't think we're getting anywhere near trouble here.
No.
It's agendized as an update on the Kinni process, so you have pretty wide latitude to ask us questions in that. But this will come back in front of you with a memo that says, here's what we think the strings are for doing this next step. Now, I think for feasibility study, the string is primarily waiting on the lower hydro and putting some money in. But after the feasibility is done, you can say no. So at that point, we can say, they say this is what our project is, and it's their project. This is what their project is going to be. And we can say, yep, we're willing to do it, or no, we're not. And once we say yes, it's their project and we match, and they go up to 10 million, and then we're on the hook for the rest within the scope. And then at that point, there's not as much ability for us to say, stop, we're done, we're quitting. Once you make a commitment to them, the one thing we're pretty happy about, frankly, is that the Army Corps' record is really good. When they say they're going to do something, they do it. It might take a little longer, it might cost a little more, but it gets done. The communities we've talked to, which aren't a whole lot at this point yet, are pretty pleased that the quality of the project's good, but it's their project, Councilmember Bjork. I mean, they will say that they're going to partner with us and work with us, but it's pretty clear that they have uniforms and they use them. It's their project. We don't have rank when it comes to determining that once we agree to the project. if that answers your question. It's,
It does.
It's
And
their
Scott,
project.
I glossed over on a slide too. I think it's a good time to mention it just for the record. So the $10 million project does require a 35% City of River Falls match. So we'd be in for $3.5 million on top of their $10 million spend. So I just wanted to get that on the record. It was in a slide, and I was trying to speed up there at the end, so I kind of glossed over that, but important piece. Yes, Alyssa?
Does the $3.5 million come out of the utilities budget, the general fund? Where would we levy for that? How does that, would we budget? I'm just wondering.
Probably a little bit debatable. If it's for dam removal, it's going to come out of the utilities, as that's a utility asset. If it starts moving into other areas along the river, it'll be debatable internally of where that is funded from. Stormwater might be stormwater. So,
Yeah, I guess
go ahead, Scott.
we're understanding from the resolution that you passed, so we're not varying yet from that until you tell us you want to, which we think you may never tell us you want to vary from that. No general property taxes is the direction that we've been given as staff. So
For dam removal.
for the dam removal, and I would guess most of the associated things, I can't imagine a whole lot of levy that would be involved. Even if we did like Riverwalk Alley or stormwater, you're likely going to use stormwater utility or water sewer utilities for projects. And then keep in mind that we have a good understanding from the Wisconsin DNR that not only would we get to use the 1 million as part of our local match, but since it's 2 dams, we'd be eligible for 2 $1 million grants from them. So that's 2 million. And that we likely wouldn't be satisfied with that. I mean, so from a staff perspective, we would think if this is such a good opportunity for us, it's also a good opportunity for the state to maximize their, and we suspect our partners are also going to put pressure like they did before to say, hey, let's not miss the train here as it's going by. So if it was a $13.5 million project, we probably have a funding gap right now of that we know of $1.5 million for local sources. And then we'd
Plus the $1 million that we got from
and that's
DNR.
without counting anything from KCC or our other partners to provide that. So we have also heard that we're wanting community partners to be part of that funding gap. And it also could be that the scope comes back and it's a $20 million project. So we have to be cognizant that until we're done with the feasibility study, these are best estimates at this point. They thought that that a $10 to $12 million project would probably accomplish the primary scope of removing the 2 dams and restoring the mile.
Question for you, Mr. Simpson. To add to what you just said, does that include total sediment removal and erosion mitigation? That 10 million grant?
Yeah, I think what they're expecting, Army Corps is expecting to do what they feel is a complete restoration. Now, how many cubic yards they decide is complete will be based on the studies and their final design. But so I want to be careful of my answers, not because I'm trying to be elusive, but they may decide some sediment stays, some sediment gets naturally carried down the river, and they are certainly going to decide that some sediment needs to be removed and taken to a disposal site. So those are all possibilities. So when you say total sediment removal, I don't know that I can say that they would take care of all the sediment in the river. It depends on what the project scope is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, just thank you for your time. I mean, this is some heavy lifting. This is a legacy project, right? I mean, we have to be thoughtful, deliberate, ask all the right questions. We are, and like Scott said, we are bending a lot of rules with FERC and DNR. We've heard, I haven't seen that before quite a few times, but we manage our way through it, and we're trying to do what's best for our ratepayers and the city of River Falls, so with your guidance. So thank you for your time tonight, and we will see you next month. Hopefully a little bit shorter presentation. We'll see. Thanks for your
Kevin.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we'll close the council hearing and open up a public hearing on a request for a combination Class B liquor and Class B beer license for Kinni Hospitality LLC, doing business as Junior's Restaurant and Tap House at 414 South Main Street. Is there anybody in the audience that has anything like to say about this? Okay, We'll close the public hearing and reopen up the council hearing, and I will take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the combination Class B liquor and Class B beer license for Kinni Hospitality LLC.
Second.
First and second, questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd just like the agent to come forward, and he's currently the agent for the current juniors, but I'd like for him just to reaffirm the 3 questions I ask every agent and make sure that we're on board. So you understand the role of an agent?
Yes, I do.
You currently possess your responsible server's certificate?
Yes, I do.
And you understand that if an alcohol-related violation occurs, even if you're not there, you're the one responsible?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thanks. Anybody else have questions or comments on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. First is acknowledgement of the following minutes. We have the Police and Fire Commission from 9/1 and 6/27. We have the Historic Preservation Commission from 8/24. We have the River Falls Housing Authority from 8/11. We have the Library Board from 8/1 and 6/6. We have the Park and Rec Advisory Board from 8/1. We have the Plan Commission from 8/2. We have the Bid Board from 8/9. We have the Utility Advisory Board from 8/15. And we have West Central Biosolids from 8/18. Next one is a resolution awarding the bid for North Loop Extension Construction. Adopting a resolution would award the bid for the North Loop Extension to Total Excavating LLC for $3,094,461. Next one is a resolution approving the general development plan for a multifamily building on Paulson Road. This resolution would approve a general development plan for a 102-unit multifamily building on Paulson Road. And last thing is a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment police powers under section 66.0703 Wisconsin statutes for the benefit of the River Falls Business Improvement District. Oof. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Mr. Mayor, I need to pull number 7, please.
Okay. Okay, I'll take a motion on the rest.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of consent agenda items 5A through I, 6 and 8.
Second.
Questions or comments on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And Mr. Morris said you pulled number 7.
I pulled number 7 because I have a conflict of interest here, so I would need to abstain. So I'd ask the clerk please to mark me as abstained, and then ask somebody else to
I'll
make the
take a motion on this one from someone.
I make a motion to approve item number 7C.
Second.
First and second, anybody got a question or comment on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we'll move on to ordinance resolution. The first one, actually, we're going to have a presentation here from Ellers on the bond sales, which we're going to be talking about here. Sean's going to give us a little update on everything.
Good. Let's go back to the Oh, okay, okay. Full display. Oh, let's do recode. Go to view. Yeah, let the expert. No, it's all good. Okay. Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Sean Lentz with Ellers and Associates. I'm going to go through the results of the borrowing for this year's capital projects. I was here about a month and a half ago, I think, at one of the council meetings to discuss the finance plan that we've been working with city staff, primarily Josh, on over the last number of months. And I'm going to start is This slide was in the handout that we had last time we went over with the group. It lists the capital projects and the budgets for those projects that the city's been working with. Some of the projects that already mentioned earlier today by Kevin as ongoing utility activity that the city's been doing. Then there's also at the bottom of the first bullet point, the Tattersall incentive, which was decided a couple years ago with the development agreement. And finally, the Man Valley acquisition for ongoing easement and then potentially development projects in that area. The other item that we had recommended including initially when we talked was including what we call a current refunding, meaning we can refund it within the next 90 days for the remaining portion of the 2011A water system revenue bonds. Looking at current market conditions, though, since we talked last, where interest rates have gone, we think it's a better decision to wait on that. So we ended up pulling that out of the plan of finance for this year. So as part of the process, we've worked with city staff on putting together the official statement for the two loans that were going out to what we call the securities market. And that was one for the water revenue bonds and one for a number of the sewer projects with a general obligation bond. And since we were going to the market, we typically then will update the city's outstanding bond rating. And so I just wanted to give you a quick update on that process. We had a really good conversation. A lot of city staff participated to talk about budgeting, talk about economic development activity going on in the city, growth in the city, current status of fund balance and other questions. And it was real good, about hour-long conversation with Moody's Investor Service. And I'm happy to report at the end of that, they affirmed the rating for your general obligation debt, which we call it the city's rating of AA2. AAA is the best, AA1, then AA2. So very, very good rating. And typically cities, the size in population and in the size of valuation of the city, a AA2 is an outstanding rating. There's not a ton of communities this size that have been able to achieve that. Water side, also an excellent rating, AA3. It's not uncommon at all that a rating for a water utility or sewer utility is going to be at least one step below the rating of the city. Part of that is just with the city debt, you're backed by the full faith and credit of the city. And with the utility debt, it's backed by rates and charges of the utility. And you'll notice one of the challenges that they note on the water revenue bonds is you don't have full control of that. The PSC is a part of that process. But I will just highlight some of the other statements. When you look at it and look at what you have direct control over, a lot of positives. What are the challenges that Moody's has put on here? It is an example, you don't have control over what the PSC says about water rates. That's their purview. And in Wisconsin, we have levy limits, which pose a challenge to the ability of the city to raise revenue. So it's a challenge, not insurmountable. You're doing a very favorable job of that according to your rating, but it is something that they take into account when putting in the rating because they're comparing you to communities all over the country. All right. Lastly, the bottom, factors to an upgrade, factors to downgrade, kind of some of the same stuff, things you have really good control over. I think you're managing quite well. They do put on the GO debt moderation of total leverage. What is that? That's indebtedness. But because you're in levy limits, more and more communities have to do debt for almost all capital projects, frankly. And so that's a very common issue with Wisconsin communities. All in all, though, excellent ratings for both the city's debt and the utilities debt. All right. So we had discussed the issuance of 2 local bank notes and then 2 security issues for the utility projects. So let me highlight the bank notes first. The Tattersall incentive was scheduled to be paid back over the next 10 years and with revenues from Tattersall's redevelopment of the old Shopko site. We had estimated on a 10-year note, general obligation backed rate of about 4.5%. The other factor that's involved here is these are taxable rather than the typical tax-exempt debt issues for both of these, because there's some private business attributes to these financings that don't allow it to be tax-exempt debt like you do maybe for a normal street project, as an example. We ended up putting this out to local banks in River Falls with a presence in River Falls. One of the banks, State Bank, had came back right away and said, just given everything we're doing right now, it's not things we can bid on. They let us know that right away. The other two banks did provide bids, and in both cases, on the Tattersall note, First National Bank had the stronger bid with 469. It's a little bit above that pre-sale interest rate that we were looking at, and I think, fortunately, last week's, again, rate increase from the Fed and indications that they're going to keep doing that didn't help us. They're about 19 basis points higher. Just to give the council an example of 450 to 469, over the 10 years, that's about $8,300. So about $830 a year, a little bit higher there. On the Man Valley, we were thinking somewhere in the 4% range. That is a balloon payment due in the 5th year, so it's going to be interest only until that point. Thought process again with that is we think either selling the land or some redevelopment activities that might go involved with that property. That balloon payment probably won't need to be extended, and it'll be prepaid off at some point over the next 5 years. But it was a little bit higher than the 4% that we had looked at in the pre-sale report. Okay. The other two issues, these are larger issues over a longer period of time. These went out to what we call the securities market. So local institutions certainly can bid on it, but typically if they do, they're partnering with other larger institutions. And so this, we were looking at the potential of getting bids all over all over the country. On the first issue, the AA2 rated $5,155,000 general obligation bonds, we ended up getting 6 bids. We had estimated in our pre-sale report somewhere around 4.14% interest rate, and it came in just below 4%, just a titch below at 3.99%. That issue would be paid back over the next 20 years. The first 8 years, the city would not have the option to prepay it, but starting in the 8th year through the full life, if you wanted to, you could either refund it or prepay it with revenues available. What we're looking to pay that debt each year, it is a general obligation debt, so it's backed by the full faith and credit of the city, but the expectation and based on funding right now from the sewer utility and special tax increment district number 13, that's going to be the funding source for that issue to pay it back. I should mention that on all of these issues, the interest rates, if approved tonight, they're locked in. Even if the market continues to go up, we would lock in at the levels proposed by the bidders this evening. And that brings me to the final issue. We had thought this issue would be a little bit closer to $6 million when we had the refunding of the 2011 bonds in there. Pulling that out brings it closer to $4.8 million, $4.85 million. This is a water system revenue bond, so it's pledged directly the revenues of the water utility, which is in a very solid financial position, as you saw from the bond rating that you have. Paid back over the next 20 years. We've got 5 bids on this. Both the 6 bids and 5 bids are very good numbers to see. Pre-sale, we'd estimated to be about 4.3%. Came in a little bit lower that with the best bid from Baird at 4.15%. And again, with this issue, the water system revenues will make the annual debt service payment. So they'll pay the operational costs of the water utility, and then the funds left over of that are committed to pay the debt service. Okay.
Sean, what's the make whole on the water? What's the prepayment on?
Prepayment on the water?
Yeah.
Prepayment on the water is the same as the 20-year GO after year 8.
8 years. Okay.
Yep. 8 years. So tonight, to lock into all 4 of the different sales, we would need approval of resolutions for each individual issue, 2 local bank institution loans, and the 2022 GO bond issue of $5,155,000, and the water system revenue bond of $4,845,000. If approved this evening, a couple weeks from now on October 18th would actually be the funding date where the dollars would come to the city and would close like when you do a home mortgage or a home refinancing. But before getting to those resolutions, if there's any questions that the council would have, I'd be happy to answer those.
How did you feel about the process of getting to the best bid?
Yeah. I think we had a good process all around. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. I was glad that we sold on Tuesday rather than on Monday because there really was very little sales in the market from when the Fed raised rates last week till this week. So you kind of let the market settle down a little bit. But we saw lots of interest. We saw a good process with getting the rating affirmed at the current levels. And I think the local bank institutions, that's a little more of a volatile market because they look at these in comparison to all the different things that they can be invested in. The buyers in the geo and the water, those buyers, that's what they do is they buy governmental securities, and so they're really set on where the market is. But overall, no, I think it's a good process to get us to where we are tonight.
Thank you.
Going further with Sean's question, so did you, out of the four, were they the lowest bid on all four of those? Or?
Oh, yeah, I apologize. I didn't make that clear. Yes, so on the two local bank loans, Security Financial bid as well, just the two bids on the two, approximately $750. So First National had the best bid cost-wise on those two issues. And on the Series C and Series D issues, Piper and Baird had the best bid. And by that, I mean the lowest cost. When we looked at the price they were willing to pay for the debt issues as well as the interest rates that they were going to charge, we calculate what's called the TIC, or true interest cost. And in both cases, what we're recommending for approval is the lowest TIC cost. Yep.
Excellent.
Question, and maybe I missed this, but you showed us the ratings.
Yep.
AA or AA2, whatever.
Right.
Was that done for these decisions? So in other words, will these decisions impact that at all?
Yeah, these ratings, I'll bring it back up on the screen. This was, it wasn't last week, it was the week before. We had that conference call with Moody's Investor Service. And then last week, I think it was Thursday or Friday last week, they contacted us as to what the rating was. And then, or in this case, that it was going to stay the same. And then we notified the bidders for today's sale last week on Friday that this is the rating that's being applied. And the rating includes what the city's doing now. Yep, it does.
Anybody else have anything? Thanks, Sean.
Great. Yep, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, so let's go on to number 9. It's a resolution awarding the sale of $5,155,000 general obligation sewage bond series 2022C.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the resolution awarding the sale of $5,155,000 in general obligation sewer bonds.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor, could we get a roll call on all of them?
Sorry,
Thank
that's my
you.
bad. Go ahead, Christie, please.
Bjork,
Yes.
Odine,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Morset,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Bierstead.
Yes.
Okay, next is resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $5,995,000 water system revenue bonds, series 2022 D of the city of River Falls, Pierce, and St. Croix counties, Wisconsin, and providing the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds. Take a motion on that.
I so move.
Second.
I'm not repeating all that.
Yeah. Questions or comments? Christie?
Odine,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Morset,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Bierstead,
Yes.
Bjork.
Yes.
Okay, next is resolution regarding $750,000 of taxable general obligation promissory notes for Tattersall Development Incentive. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Christie?
Okay.
We have to amend a motion?
Did I say something wrong?
No, the amount of the change.
Of which one?
The second one, number 10.
Oh, the 5 million, 5.9?
Yes.
But it's less, Josh, is
Yeah,
that?
less.
Yep, so it's actually $4,845,000.
Right. 4 point, where was it in the thing?
Do we have
So how do you wanna
enough,
do
do we
that?
have enough on the record,
We've
Chris?
got enough in the record, and the actual resolution that's approved says $4,845,000, so it's okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for checking though, Josh.
Yeah, we go, Josh. Okay, we had a resolution, first and second, for the $750,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes for Tattersall Development Incentive. Questions or comments? Christie?
Miller,
Yes.
Bjork,
Yes.
Bierstead,
Yes.
Morset,
Abstain.
Tony,
Yes.
Odine,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Okay, next resolution regarding $749,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes for Man Valley land acquisition.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Christie?
Morset, are you stating?
Abstain. Yep.
Carol,
Yes.
Bjork,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Odine,
Yes.
Bierstead,
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Okay, next move on to the comptroller's report.
The comptroller's report for August 2022. General fund revenues through the end of August were $8,661,048, or 74% of total budgeted revenues for the year. Revenues in August included $1,989,537 in general property tax, $58,792 in payment in lieu of tax, and $74,690 in building permits. Year-to-date expenditures through the end of August were $7,622,805, or 65% of total budgeted expenditures for the year. So as of August 30th, 2022, net revenues over expenditures were $1,038,244.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, I just got one appointment I'd like to make. I'd like to appoint Amy Freeman to the bid board through December of 2025.
I make a motion, we accept the mayor's appointment.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
First and second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
It is never